Hello, good day, guys. My name is Sani, and I'm going to be doing a weekly market outlook on Gbpusd. And I'm going to be doing this analysis in a very detailed way that you're going to understand it in a very, very simple way. And trust me, when I'm done, you have no reason not to understand how market structure and liquidity moves the market. So, without wasting much of your time, let's go straight to the chart. But as you can see, I'm using my phone, so sometimes my hand can cover my screen and it will make the video a little bit less professional. So sorry about that, but that's what you have now, and that's what I'm going to work with. So all right, guys, starting from the daily time frame on this gbpusd, what you can clearly see right now is we are in a bullish market, and the way to identify that is the last higher low that made this higher high shows us our external range on the daily time frame. Now this is a very huge zone, so we are going to be dropping down to the lower time frame bit by bit, and we are going to see what all the lower time frame is and how we are going to align that with what is coming next week. So for now, all this drawing I'm going to leave it here because I'll be explaining it exactly what I meant in every drawings that I have right now. So with let's get away with all the talk and start the top down analysis. So on gbpusd, you can see that the higher time frame is bullish. We made a higher low that made a higher high. So what do we do next after we find our bullish main push? Because we are in an uptrend, that's what it means. Because we break structure to the upside, simply means our higher time frame is bullish. All right, so first of all, you mark out the valid POIs, which are the extreme and the decisional. First of all, the extreme is the demand that led to the break of structure, the origin of the demand that led to the break of structure. And the decisional is the one that decided to break structure, is the last higher low that made the higher high that actually broke structure. That's what the decisional demand means. So we broke the structure here, which I will leave right there. And who broke that structure is this last higher low, this last pullback that cleared all this liquidity, mitigated a level of demand here, and made a new higher high. So we know we are in a bullish market. But right now, let's lower this because if we are going to be focusing on the higher time frame, then we are going to miss a lot of trades because this could take 1 or 2 weeks for price to get to this demand, the decisional or the extreme. So we'll be going down to the lower time frame and digging more on what is more relevant. So the first thing is internal structure. The internal structure of the main push is it higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, showing us that we are still bullish. But what comes next is the last higher low that made the higher high got broken to the downside, changing character, showing us that we could now be bearish. Now, this doesn't mean that the internal structure is now bearish. No, it just means that the internal structure on the bullish main trend has now switched bearish. So we can be bearish here, so down to this demand, the decisional or the extreme, and maybe continue bullish from there. That's one narrative, right? So the other one right now is what is more relevant is once we made this lower low to the downside, we broke the structure right here. We made a lower high back into supply, grabbing all this liquidity and made another new bearish break of structure right here. So what has this shown us? This has now shown us that we are now completely bearish, and we could be bearish all the way, still internal bearish, right? We cannot be bearish all the way back into this demand, the decisional or the extreme, and from there we can continue bullish. But for now, we know we are bearish. But what do we do once we know that we are bearish? We find our point of interest just the same way we did. Now, this will now set the foundation of our range, the range that we are going to be trading, which is the range high and the range low. This is our dealing range because the last lower high that made the lower low is what we should be focusing on, and at some point we can make a new lower high to make another new lower low back into a demand level. Now, knowing that, what do? We find our valid point of interest. Now, first of all, I'm going to do it the same way I do on the bullish main push, which is the extreme that led to the break of structure, and the decisional, which is also right here, that led to the break of structure. So this is the last pullback. This is the last lower high that made the lower low. I mark this out because it has the imbalance and it's swept liquidity. We'll go down to lower time frame and refine it. But for now, let's leave it at this daily order block right here. And we also have the um, main lower high that made the lower low. So this is what we are going to be focusing on the higher time frame, right? So let's drop down to the 4 hours time frame, since we have now found our dealing range on the daily time frame, which we are going to be focusing on, which is this lower high that made this lower low. Now we also identified our main push, our the supply zone, which is the extreme supply, which is right here. The decisional is this, which is right here, because it actually swept liquidity. And we also have a zone here, but as you can see, there's no imbalance right there, so we have to take note of that. There's no main order block right there. They are just consecutive mitigations, so we just mark it out, not something to care about for now. But since we have found our main push, which is now bearish, what do? We now focus on that right now I can see what do I see right now? We made a lower low, we made a lower high. We should have gone to make a new lower low, but we failed to make a new lower low. And what happened next? We made an internal bullish break of structure, right? So we made a break of structure to the upside, showing us that we could now be bullish back into one of these supply zones, because we identify what we call the complex pullback. What is the complex pullback? The retracement back into a point of interest before we continue the main trend, which is bearish. But since now we know that we have been bearish, we found the internal structure of the bearish push the same way we did on the higher time frame. We found a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, and a new lower low. So right now, this is our main push on the 4 hours time frame. This is our dealing range. We have reduced it right now from this high here to this low here. This is our main push, and until we break that, we can there are two ways to know if you are going to having a retracement back into one of these supply zones. Right now, what I can clearly see is this last lower high that fails to make a new lower low. You can see we made a huge retracement back into the other block demand zone right here before making a new internal bullish break of structure. So with this information now, by the way, I'm going to explain all this breakout structure and this liquidity that I marked out here, but for now let's focus on the main thing, which is this bullish main push. As you can see, we failed to make a new lower low, we grabbed some liquidity, and we make a new internal bullish breakout structure. What does this mean? It means that we can now be bullish back into one of these supply zones. We can be bullish back into the decisional supply or the extreme supply, which is up here, following what? Following that the higher time frame main trend is bullish, the higher time frame medium trend, mid trend is bearish, which is from this lower high to this lower low, and the internal main trend right now, which is the one that we should be focusing on because we don't trade on the higher time frame, is now bullish. Why is it bullish? Because we made a new internal bullish breakout structure. All right, so with this information that we have gotten from the 4 hours time frame, now we can now go down to the 15-minute time frame. I prefer the 15-minute time frame instead of the 1 hour time frame because they are very much more similar, and the 15-minute time frame gives us more clarity and shows the main order block that we can mark out. So let's go to the 15-minute time frame right now, and let's read more on this structure. All right, so on the 15-minute time frame, what can we do? The same thing we did from the higher time frame, because the market is fractal, right? Whatever happened on the higher time frame will also happen on the lower time frame. So this is very simple. What do we do? Again, we see that we had a main push that led to the break of structure on the internal structure time frame. Let me take this out first. So we know that we are bullish right now because we broke this lower high that fails to make a new lower low, break structure to the upside. So we are now currently, internal structure is now bullish from where? From this higher low here to this higher high. Let me mark it out. Higher low to this higher high, because we broke structure on the left. This is just internal bullish, not mean that we are now switch bullish. We are going to continue to go and make a new higher high. No, the current internal structure is now bullish. What do we do again? We mark out our point of interest, which is the decisional and the extreme that led to the breakout structure, and that's where all this can come in, all this drawing can now come in. So let me delete this first. So what can I see clearly? I can see that we had a trend line that was forming, and we had an inducement, a run of liquidity that led towards a bullish breakout structure. So this shows us that we have an extreme demand with imbalance because it grabbed liquidity on the left before leading to a new breakout structure. So what do we see? The domino effects, another buildup of liquidity, another inducement, bullish breakouts, mitigation, bullish breakout structure. So all these are now mitigated. You can see all these zones are mitigated. That's why there's no point of interest that I marked out. But the decision now that led to the breakout structure is no other than the last lower high that made the higher high that leads to the breakout structure is this demand zone right here that I marked out. This demand zone is actually very valid. If you look at it very well, you can see that it's spent a lot of time, it grabbed liquidity, and it also mitigated a point of interest, a demand zone, before leading to a breakout structure. It was the one that broke this structure to the upside, this particular structure here that I've been explaining since. The internal bullish structure, this demand led to the breakout structure. So what have we found again? We have found a main push on the 15-minute time frame that we should be focusing on, because we are intraday traders. This is our intraday main push, which is from this higher low here to this higher high, which is the reason I marked this out. Now, since we know we are bullish, we have now found a main push that swept liquidity that led to a breakout structure. We know that we are now bullish. Now, all right, so on Monday, right now, on Monday, which is tomorrow, we are going to see how price is going to come back down into this demand. Now, there are a lot of ways price could come back down into this demand, and we could actually look for sales until we hit this demand zone before looking for another bullish reaction. We can wait for price to come back down into this demand before looking for buys, and also we can sell from this zone here. We can look for sales from this zone here before continue bullish to the upside if price is still going to continue bullish. But first of all, let's check where is this reaction coming from. We are seeing some bearish markets right now, internal bearish structure on the 15-minute time frame, which is lower low, lower high, lower low right here, another lower high to grab liquidity of these zones here. Let me zoom in. A lower high to grab liquidity of these equal highs here, this inducement, and maybe we can now see price started coming back down into this demand, and we will look for sales to continue back down into this demand zone right here. Now, the first thing to note is we are reacting from somewhere once we mitigated a supply zone on the left. So let's check that out, because a lot of informations are coming in right now as we're on the 15-minute time frame. Now, this zone didn't lead to the break of structure. This is not the decisioner that led to the higher time frame 4 hours bearish trend. This is just part of a trend. This is just part of a lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. So this is not part of the structure that broke the extreme structure on the left here. So we are bound to have reaction because it's a zone that swept liquidity, a small liquidity. Let's look at it. Let's investigate. We can see we had a small inducement right here, a small liquidity grab to mitigate a supply zone here. This supply zone also swept a small liquidity here that led to a break of structure. And also, what do we see? We have another run of liquidity of a small supply here, mitigating this point and leading to a break of structure. So a very valid zone to have a reaction from. And what do we see? As price returned back into that zone, we had a reaction. We had a bearish reaction. And for now, until we mitigate this demand zone right here, we can continue bearish. You can continue looking for sales until we reach this demand zone, and from there we can continue looking for buys to continue the internal structure. We hit either the decisional or the extreme, right? We can hit the decisional supply and then continue bullish and bearish, sorry, and from there we will know that we have completed the bearish structure. So it can look confusing, but it's very, very simple. If you look back at it, you are going to understand how the market moves from trend to trend. It can be bullish, it can be bearish, but how you read it from the higher time frame down to the lower time frame will determine what your outcome is going to be. So that will be all for now. I don't really have anything much to do from aside from this, other than we wait for the Asian sessions to read, and we'll see how price will grab liquidity. Maybe you can look for sales back down into this demand before looking for buys, or price just come grab some liquidity. Then we come into the decisional supply, and from there we will look for sales back down into demand. And maybe if price is still bearish, we can now break structure to the downside and continue the bearish overall 4-hour trend. So that will be all for now, and thanks for watching. If you watch up to this point, thanks for watching. I really appreciate, and I hope we can grow together. So goodbye.